now I can for real say good morning. Had a little bit of computer problems, but we're ready for the day. And this month, we're focusing on the Anandamaya Kosha, which is our bliss body, our joy body. And today I just want to focus on one of the primary ways we can access that natural joy, and that is through gratitude. That gratitude is the gateway to joy. We don't feel grateful, we don't feel grateful because we feel joy, but we feel joy because we find and tap into gratitude. So let's just start seated with a tall spine and focus on our breath for a few moments. And see if you can find a place where you're comfortable and supported enough that you can feel your shoulders stacked over your pelvis and be able to kind of relax through your legs. And breathe in and out of your nose. See if you can find a sense of a smile behind your eyes. And hold that smile inside of your mouth. And breathe that sense of a smile right in your heart space. And feel that internal buoyancy and lightness that just even that posture of a smile from the inside out can bring. And very simply, just create the connection of the words thank you with your breath. You can think thank you as you breathe in. Thank you as you breathe out. It's in creating this habit, this default mode of gratitude that allows us to see everything as a gift and enables us to tap into joy as we move throughout our days. My favorite story about gratitude is from The Hiding Place, the book The Hiding Place. The sisters Corey and Betsy Ten Boom were in a concentration camp. They were Christian sisters that had been harboring Jews and were imprisoned and were able to smuggle in a Bible. And one night when they were first at the Ravensbrück concentration camp, Betsy and Corey were praying. And Betsy was directing Corey, I know the secret, the way that we can find joy here. It's in the scripture we read this morning. Be grateful in all things. They thanked God for the women that they were with, for the miracle of being able to smuggle in their little Bible, even though they had been strip searched and everything taken away from them. thankful for being together. And finally, Betsy prodded Corey to express gratitude for the fleas. They were all, every inch of the barracks they were in was infested with fleas. And Corey just said, I draw the line there. There's no way I can be thankful for the fleas. But she finally relented and gave in and expressed thanks in her prayer for the fleas. And a few days later, Betsy overheard a conversation of the guards. Someone needed to go into that barracks to get something, and the guards completely refused. They wouldn't go in because of the fleas. The fleas were their tormentors, right? Their constant companions, but they were also their protectors. They were able to gather the women and pray and sing and read that little Bible together because the guards were too afraid to go in. Guards did not want to come in contact with the fleas. And we may have those same kind of circumstances in our lives, the fleas that seem like a tormentor, something we couldn't possibly be grateful for. Because they were willing to first express gratitude for it, they were able to find the gift, right? That's the gateway to joy. Let's just kind of ponder that as we move this morning. Gently open your eyes. We're just going to let our legs go long and prop yourself up behind you with your hands and just kind of windshield wiper your feet in and out. But think about moving from your hip joints. So internal and external rotation. So your knees and your toes will kind of stay pointing in the same direction. And then just gently let your legs go a little bit wider and wider. And then let them come back. So just greet your hips and your hip joints. Let them get out a little bit wider. It doesn't have to go super wide. Start to just think about that. Femur bone, your socket, and ball and joint just kind of rotating in that place there. And shaking out and finding a little bit of mobility. And then we'll scoot off if you're sitting on anything. Scoot off of it and we'll come onto our backs. And take your feet as wide as your mat. And we'll just do that same thing, internal and external, but just windshield wipering your knees from side to side. So feet are pretty wide, and then knees bent from side to side. After you're even with left and right, just find some stillness and toe heel your feet till they're about hip distance apart. And just lift your right foot up off the floor. Let your rib cage sink down into the floor. Feel your pelvis supported underneath you. And just let your knee be bent at a 90-degree angle and just internally and externally rotate that hip again. It's kind of wagging in that hip joint. And now see if you can kind of move and like feel like you're crossing that ankle over your thigh and then opening that knee out to the side. So let's stay in external rotation and then just cross that ankle over and the knee out to the side. Let's do one more. And then reach your left arm up alongside your ear so that when you bring this foot over to your left, you can roll onto your left side. No. Spin around. And you can stomp that right foot on the floor there. And see if you can push that knee away from you. And you can support your head on your arm or your hand. I'm going to find some big hip circles here. So see if you can float that right foot up off the floor. Use your hand if you need to. And then lift your right knee so it's just hovering above the floor and flex through your foot so it kind of stays in line with your knee. And then externally rotate and bring that knee up towards your armpit into your chest. And then really push it back as far as you can and engage through your glute. And then we'll do that again. Externally rotate, knee up to your armpit, into your chest, and then push it back. Engage through that glute. Last time in that direction. And then we'll switch. Bring your knee in toward your chest, and then externally rotate here. And now, before you flex back, see if you can find internal rotation of that hip, and then push it back. Out towards your chest, towards your armpit, external rotation, and then internally rotate that hip. Find your extension. One last time there. So just slow exploration of that hip joint. See if you can keep kind of a natural space under your waist here. Keep your spine as neutral as possible. Okay, bring your knee into your chest and then find that external rotation and see if you can just plant your foot down, maybe. And then push your knee away and then float it up. And then find your hip extension again. We'll do that a couple of times. Knee up and then try to plant that foot down. And reach it back. Last time. Plant that foot down. And then we'll just roll back onto our backs. So that right ankle is crossed over your left thigh, just below your knee. And then you can float your left foot up off the floor. Don't use your hands for anything. And just kind of let yourself find a passive stretch here. You can rock a little bit from side to side. Maybe even feel like you're making a little bit of a circle, rocking, stirring with those knees. Stay active through both feet so your ankles, knees, and kind of hips all feel stabilized. And then release that. Now return to that windshield wiper. So feet as wide as your mat and just rock from side to side. You can notice if it feels different. Right to left. And then find your pause. Feet closer, about hip distance apart. And just let your spine feel supported. So feel the back of your pelvis on the floor and the whole back of your rib cage. And then just lift up this left leg. Knee bent at 90 degrees and find your internal external rotation here. So you're just kind of wagging, let your knees stay over your hip. And so you're kind of wagging that shin from side to side, but you're moving right at your hip joint. And then stay in that external rotation and cross your ankle over without touching it. Everything's gonna hover, and then open that knee out. Cross it over. Now open it out. Let's see, flex through that foot. And cross it over. Open it out. Reach your right arm above your head alongside your ear so that you can roll onto that right side. Your left foot will stomp on the floor. Just keep your right leg as it is. And we'll find those same movements that we did on the first side. So you can rest your head in your hand or rest your head on your arm. Whatever feels more supportive for you. And then float that leg up. And then bring your knee into your chest. Out to the side. And your internal rotation and push back. Into your chest. Up. And then internal. Engage through that glute. When you reach back. And just slow circles. And then we'll switch. So really push that heel back, engage through your glute so that you're opening the front of that hip, and then find that external rotation. Bring your knee up towards your armpit and then into your chest. So we're just getting into all those little muscles and our joint to let our body know, right, that we need access. Like our brain and those muscles all need to be connected to each other. All right, find that external rotation and see if you can plant that foot outside your right knee. And you can use your hand to grab it if you need to. And then we'll float it up and bring it back to extension. And then draw that knee into your chest, externally rotate. Plant it. You can notice maybe one side is a little different than the other. Externally rotate. Plant it. And we'll roll onto our backs again. So just keep this left ankle over your right thigh and flex both feet, and maybe float that right foot up off the floor. And you can find your little rocks. Maybe some circles there a little bit. And then uncross that leg. Final time. Feet as wide as your mat. Just find those windshield wipers of our legs. And just notice if it feels any different now after the attention that we've given to our hips. And come back to center, bring your feet hip distance apart. And interlace your fingers and just reach them up toward the ceiling. We'll just do a little bit of spinal work. So push into your feet, lift your hips up off the floor, and then bring your hands towards your heart. And then lower your hips down and reach your knuckles back up toward the ceiling. And just move with your breath there. Lift your hips and lower. You can feel that space between your shoulder blades. You draw your hands towards your heart, shoulder blades come toward each other. And as you lower your hips and reach your knuckles up, your shoulder blades spread on your back. Just keep moving with your breath. And then we'll pause with our hips down, release your arms. Draw your shoulder blades together and lift back up into your bridge. It doesn't need to be super high. But I want you to feel like you're pulling your heels toward your shoulders and just feel your back body turn on. And then maybe make your feet come a little tiny bit closer to each other. Push into your left heel and just float your right foot off the floor a tiny amount. And then switch sides. We're just going to march back and forth. Try to keep your hips the same level. You can even bring your hands to your hip points to just notice as you go back and forth which one wants to dip down. Let's go back and forth one more time. And then lower. Keep your left knee bent and just reach your right leg long on the floor. And find a little bit of length and release through the front of that right hip. And then we'll just lift that right leg straight up and lower. Try to keep the natural curves of your back. So you don't have to lift this leg very far, or you can bend your knee if you need to. Just lift and lower that right leg. And then next time it comes on up, you can hold on to the back of your thigh and just breathe some length. After a breath or two, you might want to walk your hand up a little bit higher, but try to keep the natural curves of your spine. A little bit of space under your lower back. Bend that right knee. Lengthen out through your left leg and just pause there for a second to let the front of your hip release. And then we'll lift and lower. Just some dynamic movement. And it doesn't have to lift high. Just kind of greet the tissues in the back of that left leg and engage through the front. Next time your leg comes up, you can just go ahead and grip your hands behind that left thigh. And you can play with the stretch of pointing or having your foot flexed. After a couple breaths, you might want to walk your hand a little higher. And then release it down. One last round of bridge pose. So just draw your shoulder blades together, let your feet be parallel with each other, push into your heels and feel like you're dragging your heels back towards your shoulders as you lift. Engaging through that back body, opening through the front, letting your front ribs feel softened down. Feel like your tailbone's going the same direction as your knees. And then lower your hips down. Hug your knees into your chest and then let your knees go wide and we'll just find a happy baby pose. Flex your feet. And then lift your feet up like they're stomping on the ceiling. Your knees are a little bit wider than your rib cage. You can resist your feet into your hands into your feet, and resist your tailbone toward the floor. And from here, we'll rock up to seated. You can grab the backs of your thighs, the fronts of your shins. Just come on up. And we'll do a little bit of 90-90 work. So we'll start with our hands behind us and your knees bent, feet wider than your hips, and maybe 18 inches away from your body. And we're just gonna windshield wiper our legs from side to side. So we've been doing this already, laying down. Now we're just moving seated. So go a couple times, leaning back on your hands, and then you can explore sitting more upright. And then maybe bringing your hands up off the floor. Now, your bum might walk a little bit as you do this, but think about moving from your core strength and from the strength of those muscles around your hip joints. So you can see if you can find your external rotation as far as it'll go before you internally rotate that other leg. Just go a couple more times back and forth. Let's end going to the right. And then you can just find a nice twist. So we'll just twist to the right and walk your hands over to the right. And then we'll switch over to the left. And then really let yourself twist to the left. And then face the top of your mat, just cross your ankles, rock forward, come to your hands and knees. Find a round or two of cat and cow, just dropping your belly. And rounding your spine. And then find a neutral spine, so you're not sending your sitting bones up too high, but you're not rounding your pelvis underneath you. So if you can find it neutral and keep that as neutral as possible and push your hips towards your heels and then come forward. Push your hips towards your heels and then come forward. And this time we'll tuck our toes, push our hips back and up for a downward facing dog. And you can sway from side to side. Greet your shoulders here. Look up at the top of your mat. We'll just take a walk all the way to the top of your mat. Soften to your knees, inhale, find a halfway lift. And exhale to fold. Soften your knees as much as you need to. You really feel like you're lifting up through your sitting bones. You can relax through your neck. And then bend through your knees, roll yourself up to standing. And just pause here in your mountain pose. Find your parallel feet. Let your heart be open and see if you can breathe that internal smile. Finding that smile behind your eyes, holding that sense of a smile inside of your mouth. Feeling that brightness of a smile right in your heart space, and then let your palms face forward. Let your lower ribs soften down. And take a big breath in, reach high. And then exhale, fold forward over your legs. Soft knees. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and fold. Inhale, big step back with your left foot. Exhale your left knee down. And just find some movement of your hips here. You can back and forth, maybe little circles. And then inhale, reach high. Now back out of this lunge a little bit. Untuck your back toes. Engage to this left glute, and then grab onto your left forearm with your right hand and find a side bend here. And come on up. We're going to toe heel our right foot in line with the left. We're in that tandem kneel, that tricky balance. Just feel what you need to stabilize. Then we'll pivot on our left knee and turn to the left. So right heel stays exactly as it is. And now we're open to the left. Bring your right hand inside that right knee, reach your left arm out, and then we'll bend into that ankle and knee. And open through that hip on that left side. And then bring your right forearm to your right thigh. Just end that pulsing, lengthen your left arm alongside your ear. And then we'll turn to face the front of your mat. You can unpivot that left heel. And then just take your right leg back behind you, bend your knee and push it up. Bring those hip circles here. So bring that right knee up towards your armpit into your chest, and then reach your heel up toward the ceiling. Let's just do 2 in one direction and then switch knee to chest out to the side. And then knees down. Push your hips back. And then up for downward facing dog. You can notice the difference from one side to the other. Inhale onto your tippy toes, look forward. Exhale, bend your knees, take your walk to the top of your mat. Inhale, halfway lift here. Exhale, unfold. Inhale all the way to standing. Reach high. Exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale and reach high. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, right foot back into your lunge, and then exhale that right knee down. And just find that little movement in your hips here, swaying from side to side, stirring your hips in circles. And inhale yourself up and then back out a little bit so that both of your legs are 90 degrees. Engage that right glute and grab onto your right arm. Side bend over to your left. Lengthening through that whole right side body. Come back up through center. Untuck those back toes if they're tucked. Toe heel your right heel, so it's on the same line as your left. Your left heel on the same line as your right knee. And just play with your balance. Get some stability in your core. And really think about breathing 360 degrees around your whole rib cage. And then we'll pivot on that right knee and find those pulses through our left hip. So left hand inside that left knee, and then just bend. So I'm not as much interested in a side bend here as I am into just getting into all of these joints in this chain from your ankle to your knee to your hip on that left side. Pulse there one more time. And then find your left forearm on your left thigh. Reach your right arm alongside your ear. Open through that right side body. And then we'll turn to the left, plant your hands, and unpivot that right knee, and then just take your left leg back and reach that heel toward the ceiling. And then out to the side, towards your armpit and in. Just 2 circles that direction. And then switch. And then both knees down. Take your knees as wide as your mat, and then push your hips back towards your heels. And I want you to try to keep a neutral spine and just do this rocking back and forth. Pushing back into those hip joints. And then you can tuck your toes. Lift your hips up and back for your downward facing dog. And then find a bend in your knees here and really push into the floor and reach your sitting bones back. And you can even feel like you're exaggerating your lower back curve here. Your heels up off the floor, your knees bent. And then you can bring your legs towards straight. And push your inner thighs back. And then walk your hands back towards your feet. Turn your toes out just slightly, and then bend into your knees and bring your hands to your knees. We'll just find a few rounds of a squat. So we're starting here pretty high. I'm going to push into your heels and use your strength to come all the way up to standing. And then bend into your knees and let yourself come down. Maybe you come a little bit lower, but I want you to feel all that strength. We've kind of turned that awareness on through our hip joints. I want you to feel and only come down as far as you can, where you can use that strength to push you back up. And we're going to move slow and controlled. Pushing through your heels to come back up. And coming down as low as you can, where you can still come up with control. Let's just do 2 more. Just moving slow with control. Coming down just to where you can feel your muscular support will be able to push you back up. And so anywhere along there. And then toe heel your feet so they're hip distance apart. Bring your hands to your hips, squeeze an imaginary beach ball behind your back. Find just a slight lift in your lower belly and let yourself fold. And come to a flat back, soften your knees just a little bit and really send your sitting bones back. Feel like you're squeezing something between your thighs and push that back. Lengthen through the crown of your head. And then draw your lower belly in as you fold all the way. And let your spine release and relax. And then we'll just take one hand print at a time and walk back into our downward facing dog. From here, lift your right leg up and back. And then step your right foot forward between your hands. Lift that back heel and we'll come up to a high lunge. Reach your arms high. From here, we'll move into standing balance in warrior 3. So you can bring your hands and rest them on your thigh, or you can float your hands by your hips. Now lean forward and float your left leg up off the floor. And you can stay here and brace yourself, or you can reach your hands back. You can find some buoyancy in that right leg, so you don't need to stay rigid. Okay. And then we'll bend into our knee. See if you can bend your left knee and just tap it to the back of your right calf, and then lengthen back out. And do that 2 more times. You can brace yourself, or you can have your hands floating. Last time, bend and tap, lengthen out. Now we're going to come to a seated position. You're going to bring your left knee to the floor outside your right heel, and then sit down to the left of that left foot. So we have our right knee up and we're kind of crossed, ready for a seated twist. So you'll wrap your left arm around that right knee and then really resist your forearm into your knee. And see if you can rock your right sitting bone to the floor. Lengthen through your spine. And twist your right, maybe even look over your right shoulder. And then unwind yourself. Take this right leg and just swing it back all the way behind you, and then rock so that your hips are square to the floor and your left heel is close to your pubic bone. And then feel like you're squeezing your knees together and see if you can come upright. You can have your hands on something, on blocks or something beside you. You can have your hands on that right thigh. But find some strength here. And then bring your hands down. Step back into your downward facing dog. And pedal your feet out. And then find stillness for a breath. Lift your left leg up and back. And then step that left foot forward. Set up for your high lunge. And come on up. Reach your arms high. Push into that right big toe ball mound. And then hands by your sides. You can interlace those fingers and rest them on your thigh and float yourself forward into that warrior 3. And you can have some buoyancy in that left knee. And just feel the contact of your foot with the floor. Big toe ball mound, pinky toe ball mound, center of your heel. And then bend both knees, tap your right knee to your left calf. You can brace yourself as much as you need. And lengthen out. 2 more times there. Bend and tap. And then lengthen. Last time, bend and tap. Lengthen out. And then we'll come to our seated position. So you're going to bring that right knee to the floor outside of your left heel. And then sit down. Wrap that right forearm around your left knee. And then use the resistance of your knee into your forearm and your forearm into your knee to draw that left sitting bone to the floor. And you can twist to your left. Bring your left hand behind you or just keep hands together. Breathing into that left outer hip. Unwind your twist. Get that left leg behind you and then rock so your hips are square to the floor. Then tuck those back toes, but you're not sickling your ankle in. Okay. And your right heel is pretty close to your pubic bone. You're going to feel like you're dragging your heels toward each other. Maybe walk your hands up your thigh. Maybe float them off. But you feel this drawing toward center and all of this strength. And then bring your hands down, tap those back toes. Step back to your downward facing dog. And breathe there. All right, we'll go into another round of pigeon, but we'll let ourselves relax there a little more. So bring your right knee forward behind your right wrist. Ground that left knee, and you can set yourself up here. You can always pad underneath that right hip with a folded blanket or a pillow. If this just is not okay for your knee or your hip, you can lay down on the floor on your back and cross your right and go over. And then maybe grab behind that left thigh. You're laying down here. The closer this right heel is toward your pubic bone, the less intense it will be. Maybe you fold forearms or maybe even forehead to the floor. And even though, we've got the resistance of the floor, we're kind of passively stretching through this hip. I want you to still find some stability around that hip joint. So that little sense of your knees drawing toward each other. Let's just take one more round of breath here. And walk your hands back toward that right shin. Tap your left toes. Step back. Get any wiggles out that you need to. If it would feel good to kind of find some circles through that right hip. You can move or straighten that leg behind you. And we'll switch to the other side. So just bring that left knee forward behind your left wrist. Ground your right knee, and you can lengthen. Just kind of walk knee, toe back. And make sure that your hips are level with each other. You're not rocking to the left or to the right. And tuck those back toes. And then fold forward any amount, but you still find that sense of stability, of dragging your knees toward each other as your heart stays open. You can use any props that you'd like. Always stick something under this hip here. Want this to feel friendly in your knees. You can lay on your back and do that figure four. It's another option. You can think of that left hip as a lung. Maybe even breathe that smile of gratitude into that space with your inhale. Let everything expand. And then as you exhale, just release anything that you don't need. Just one more round of breath here. And then walk your hands toward that left shin. Last downward facing dog. Tuck those back toes. Push yourself back. Find that upside down V, any movements that you want with that left hip that would feel good. Clear that out. And then bring your knees to the floor. Cross your ankles behind you. And then lengthen your legs out into a wide V. And prop yourself up with your hands. You can sit on a blanket. Anything that you need to make sure that your pelvis is upright. So think of that space between your pubic bone and your tailbone being parallel with the floor. And your tailbone's free from out underneath you. It's not tucked under you. And then here, just find that internal and external rotation of your legs. Just kind of flop them from side to side a little bit. I'm not moving very far. Just using that ability to move in and out from my hip socket. And then find a place where your knees and toes are pointing straight up toward the ceiling. Find some activity in your legs. And then you can find a little bit of softness behind your knees. Feel like you're dragging your heels in to pull your heart forward. And then maybe push your knees to the floor and you pulse out a little bit. Do that 2 or 3 times. Where you're dragging your knees in to pull you forward, or your heels in, I guess I should say. And then pushing your knees down into the floor. Just kind of floss your way down to find your forward fold. Most important part is that you have freedom in your pelvis. And so you can prop yourself up anywhere, as long as you're feeling this in the backs of your legs. Start to offer some gratitude to your body as you fold. And feel some gratitude for your feet, and your ankles, your lower legs and your knees, your thighs and your hip joints and your pelvis and all their contents. And you can connect to that thank you as you inhale and as you exhale. Walk your hands in, go ahead and sit upright. Bring your hands underneath your knees and just bend them in, lean back, find those little windshield wipers again. And keep revisiting today. And then scoot yourself to the center of your space and lay down on your back. One last round of bridge pose, so feet flat on the floor. See if you can move up one vertebrae at a time. So really push your lower back into the floor, lift your tailbone and then your sacrum. And then see if you can feel each lower back vertebrae lift. And then your middle vertebrae and your upper. It does not need to be an extreme back bend. Just an awareness in your spine and opening through your front body. And feel that brightness in your heart space. That sense of a smile, that expansive thank you. And then gently lower yourself down. See if you can go one vertebrae at a time again. Get out any wiggles that you need to. You can windshield wiper your legs again. And just lengthen your legs. And then find a place where you can be really receptive as you relax. Palms face up. Get any wiggles out and then find that internal, external rotation of your legs, but it's just like a really free rocking. And you can alternate which leg. They can both go the same direction. But then just kind of feel some shaking. Feel your skin slide on the mat underneath you and your tissue slide over your skin. Just feel that lubrication in your body and shake. Just kind of let yourself shake against the floor. Let your shakes get even faster. You feel the back of your head, the back of your rib cage, backs of your arms kind of slide around on your skin that's pinned down. And then totally find stillness. And breathe that smile as you find the awareness of your whole entire body. Just notice the tingling and aliveness in your feet, in your hands, in your face. And just breathing that thank you. And feel free to stay here for as long as you have time. When you're ready to come out, find a bend in your knees, reach your arms overhead, just roll to one side. Gently push yourself up to a seat. Bring your hands to your heart, just check in with how you feel from the inside out. A sense of delight that you can take into your day, freedom in your pelvis and your hips. The divine light in me honors the divine light in you. Namaste. I hope you have a wonderful day.